Welcome to Fun Facts Daily, your source for just the good stuff. Monday through Friday, we're bringing fun facts and news you can use, all carefully curated to uplift and inform. So give yourself a break, relax, and learn something awesome in just a few minutes every day. Hi everyone, I'm Kyle Wood, and today we're going to be talking about some tools we use repeatedly throughout the day but seldom think about. I'm talking about dishes and utensils, but before we get into the facts, let's warm up our brains with a little challenge to see if you can tell fact from fiction. Consider this. The fork is a tool most of us use every day without a second thought, but would you believe it was once considered scandalous and improper to use this tool in parts of Europe? It was said to be blasphemous even. What do you think? Is this an actual fact or too good to be true? We'll find out at the end of the episode. Now for your word of the day. Today's word is cutlery. That's C-U-T-L-E-R-Y. Cutlery refers to the implements we use for eating or serving food, specifically items like knives, forks, and spoons. You might also hear it used in a broader sense to describe any cutting instruments, like a collection of kitchen knives. When you set the table, you're laying out the cutlery. The word has a very sharp history. It comes from the Old French word coutellerie, which meant a cutler's shop or the items made there. A cutler was the name for someone who makes or sells knives. And this in turn comes from the Old French word coutel, which simply meant knife. If we trace that back even further, it comes from the Latin word cultellus, which was the diminutive or smaller version of coulter, meaning knife. So, at the root, the word cutlery is all about the knife. Time for your daily high five, our top 5 fun facts about dishes and utensils. Number 1. Chopsticks were originally invented for cooking, not eating. The earliest known chopsticks date back to at least 1200 BCE in China during the Shang Dynasty. But these early versions were much longer and heavier than the ones used today. They were made of bronze and not meant for delicately picking up food at the table. They were used as cooking utensils. Think of them more like long tongs for reaching into large pots of boiling water or hot oil to retrieve pieces of food. It wasn't until around 400 CE that chopsticks started to shrink and became popular as table utensils. The shift was largely influenced by the philosopher Confucius. He believed that sharp instruments like knives reminded people of the slaughterhouse and that their presence at the dinner table was just too aggressive. Chopsticks, with their gentle, blunt ends, were seen as a more civilized and peaceful way to eat, reflecting his nonviolent teachings. Number 2. The very first spoons were often just seashells or conveniently shaped pieces of wood. The spoon is probably the oldest utensil we have. It was created long before humans figured out metalworking. Prehistoric people needed a way to scoop up liquids like broth or water, as well as grainy foods. The most convenient, naturally occurring tools for the job were things like seashells, small hollowed-out gourds, or simply a chip of wood. In fact, our modern word spoon comes from the Old English word spon, which means a sliver or chip of wood. As civilizations advanced, the materials became more elaborate. The ancient Egyptians, Greeks, and Romans crafted elaborate spoons from materials like ivory, bronze, and silver, often decorating them with intricate handles. But for the average person, a simple, functional spoon carved from wood remained the go-to scooping tool for thousands of years. Number 3. For centuries, the most common plate wasn't made from pottery or metal. It was actually just a thick slice of stale bread. This edible plate was called a trencher. It was typically a large, flat piece of stale bread, often a whole day or two old, which made it hard and dense. This hardness was essential so it wouldn't get soggy too quickly and fall apart. People would place their meat, stews, and other foods directly onto this bread slab. The trencher would soak up all the juices, sauces, and gravies from the meal. What happened to the trencher after the meal depended on your social status. The wealthy lords and ladies, after eating the food off the top, would often give the soaked, flavor filled bread to their servants or the poor as a charitable act. In humbler households, the diners might eat their trencher themselves as the final, most flavorful part of the meal. This incredibly practical zero waste system was the standard for dining across Europe throughout the Middle Ages, long before individual plates became common. Number 4. The most expensive dish ever sold at auction was a tiny ceramic bowl that went for over $37 million. In 2017, an extremely rare 900-year-old brush washer bowl from China's northern Song dynasty went up for auction. It was only about 5 inches in diameter, but it went for an astronomical $37.7 million. What makes it special is not just that it's old, but it has an incredibly rare ware glaze. This specific type of ceramic is famous for its beautiful, subtle blue-green color and a unique crackle pattern that forms in the glaze. These pieces are incredibly valuable because they're incredibly rare. It's believed that fewer than 100 complete pieces of ware survive in the world today, and almost all of them are in museums. This specific bowl was used by the Chinese imperial court for a very delicate task, washing calligraphy and painting brushes. It's just amazing how such a simple little bowl just for washing out brushes could eventually be considered a priceless work of art in and of itself. And our fifth and final fun fact for today, the spork is older than you might think, with patents dating back to the 1800s. Many of us associate the spork with 20th century fast food chains and school cafeterias, but the idea of combining a spoon and fork really isn't new. Patents for spoon forks and other hybrid utensils were being filed in the United States as early as 1874. One inventor named Samuel W. Francis patented a very ambitious design that included a spoon, fork tines, and knife edge on the side of the spoon bowl. Interestingly, while the idea of combining multiple utensils into one tool is pretty old, the word spork is much younger. The word spork was registered as a trademark in 1970 by a company in the United Kingdom, although it had been used informally prior to that. The design we're most familiar with, the plastic spoon with a few short tines at the tip, was popularized as a way for restaurants and airlines to save money and space. Now for some news you can use. If you've ever accidentally scorched a stainless steel pot or pan while cooking, you know how difficult it can be to scrub off that blackened, burnt-on mess. Here's a simple science-based tip. Use baking soda and white vinegar. First, make sure the pot is empty and cool. Sprinkle a generous layer of baking soda directly onto the burnt area, making sure it's fully covered. Next, pour a small amount of white vinegar over the baking soda. It will immediately start to fizz and bubble. Let the fizzing mixture sit in the pan for about 10 to 15 minutes to do its work. After it's soaked, add a little hot water and the burnt bits should lift right off with gentle scrubbing from a non-abrasive sponge. Now, if you're curious about the science behind this little hack, it's a simple acid-base reaction. The baking soda, a base, reacts with the vinegar, an acid, to create carbon dioxide gas. That's the fizzing. This reaction provides a gentle, non-toxic scrubbing action that helps to mechanically loosen and lift the burnt food from the surface of the pan. The baking soda itself is also a mild abrasive, so it's providing a little extra cleaning power without scratching your good cookware. Now for the moment you've been waiting for. At the beginning of the episode, I asked if it's true that the fork was once considered a scandalous and even blasphemous tool in parts of Europe. Well, that's a fact. The fork was actually common in the wealthy Byzantine Empire, but when it was introduced to Western Europe, particularly in Italy around the 11th century CE, it was met with serious suspicion. According to historical accounts, when a Byzantine princess married a Venetian leader, she brought small golden forks with her, and the local clergy and nobles were shocked. Some prominent religious leaders at the time declared that using this artificial hand was an insult to God, who gave humans natural forks in their fingers. This attitude lasted for centuries. As late as the 1600s, it was still seen as an unnecessary and even, quote, unmanly affectation in many parts of Europe, like France and England. It wasn't until the 1700s, when the curved, four-tined fork we know today was developed, that it finally became widely accepted as a standard part of a table setting. Now, I hope you enjoyed learning a bit about dishes and utensils with me today, and be sure to tune in every weekday for even more fun facts. Fun Facts Daily is an Airwave Media podcast. It was written, recorded, mixed, and edited by me, Kyle Wood. Thanks for sharing a part of your day with me. Be sure to follow Fun Facts Daily on your favorite podcast app so you can keep the good stuff coming your way every day. And if you like the show, please do me a favor and leave a kind rating, review, or just tell your friends about it.